Mhm.
Good morning.
Morning, Zach. How are you?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Good, thank you. Okay. Is that Randy? All right, Randy and I practiced this yesterday, so I'm guessing he's jumping on here really soon. There we go. Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How about you?
Good, thank you. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. Absolutely. Okay, I think I got everything set up, ready to go.
Okay.
We had to make some alterations to the system, but I think we got it.
Okay. Well, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, that's good.
Do you want to practice sharing again, or you think you got it?
Let me do it real quick here. Oh, wait a minute. I have to log in a second time, remember?
Yeah. Okay.
All right, I'm going to log in the second time right now.
Okay.
You got to find your link on. I got two keyboards. I'm trying to remember which one to use.
Hey, morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, there we go.
this here.
Okay, Randy, I'm gonna go ahead and mute everybody right now until we get you going.
Okay.
And then I just gotta find you again. Hold on a sec, and I'll unmute you. All right, and then you're gonna have let me know that I can hear you.
Okay, I should.
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. So
Okay.
logging on right now. There's the second one.
Okay.
Okay. Did you see the second one? I'll have my name a second time.
Yeah, I do see your name a second time.
Okay, so I think it's up and running now.
Okay, are you, did you share your screen?
Not yet. Here's
Okay.
the share.
Let's just make sure that part's working. Yeah, okay. So if you want to start off by introducing yourself, and you may want to ask other people to kind of keep an eye on the chat room for you.
Okay, I'm just trying to get the slideshow. This thing on the top here. How do I get rid of it? Because it's covering the
Randy, you can move it around.
Oh, I can? Okay.
You can drag it.
Oh yeah, I see a little arrow right there. Put it on the bottom.
There we go.
All right, there we go. All right, hooray, we got it.
Okay. So yeah, great. So I think you're up and running. I'll be in the background if you need me. If you would just start out by introducing yourself, and then everybody, just a reminder out of courtesy, if you'll please remember to mute yourself unless you're talking to Randy or asking a question. Thank you. Okay, Randy, thank you. Thanks for being here today.
All right, good morning, everybody. Today we're talking about negotiate the deal. First off, my name is Randy Sedano. I'm in the Gateway office. I have been in the business, I'd say, I don't know, maybe, well, since mid-90s. And so I've been through a few ups and downs, and this is one fun business, and this is one of my favorite topics right here. If you see me looking around, it's because my new laptop did not connect to Zoom properly, and I could not do the screen share. So I have one computer for the screen share and one for the audio and video. So we made it work, so we'll get through it. So anyways, over the last few sessions, I've seen it's come up a couple times where it says, hey, you need more time to let people respond. So what I'm going to do is I'll wait about 10 seconds. I won't stay silent because I don't like silence. I'll say, anybody have any input, any questions? And I may say a few more things. And if nobody responds, then I'll just say, okay, let's move on. All righty. Also, if somebody can watch the chat, and do I have any volunteers? Ellison, I can see you. Can you watch the chat for me? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Ellison. After the end of each slide, then I'll ask for input. So let's kind of wait. If you have questions, or let's wait till the end of the slide. I'll always ask. And the Ignite course, it has the facilitator guide, the participant guide, and of course the slideshow. Now, being that we are in the Zoom environment, I had to make a few changes because we can't break up in small groups. So what I did is I made some changes to where the instead of breaking up in small groups, we'll have a group discussion. And when it says turn to your page in the participant manual, I included those in the slideshow, so you don't have to be looking back and forth. They'll be right on the screen. Okay, everybody ready? I'll take that as a yes. All right. So anyways, welcome to Negotiating the Deal, one of the funnest parts of the business. And as we look at the first slide, Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it says what we're going to be focusing on today. Of course, we're not going to focus on everything on this slide, but of course, grow your business is an ongoing thing, and running your business is hopefully an everyday thing as well. We got to generate business to run the business. Today, we're going to concentrate though on negotiating contracts. All right. So let's move on from here. It's going to break it down into different areas. Okay. There's common points in negotiation. And then, of course, there's approach to negotiating and analyzing and countering tactics that are thrown at you. And then also some scenarios. And what I'm going to do is as we go along, sometimes I have some good stories that kind of go along with what we're talking about. So I'll include those. And if anybody else has some good stories that will be a good learning experience, feel free to share yours as well. Okay, any questions before we move on? I see one in the chat. Let me see if I can get to it. Okay, that's just a link for the for something. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so as we look at the slide here, it's going to give you kind of a basic understanding of negotiation. And in the Ignite manual, it gives us an actual definition. It says a negotiation is a bargaining process between two or more parties seeking to discover common ground to reach an agreement to settle a matter, a mutual concern, or a conflict. And it all relates to us. Settle a matter. Well, I want to buy this house. I want to sell this house. It's also a mutual concern. And then there's conflict that we have to resolve. Buyer and seller don't agree on something. Maybe you and your client don't agree on something. So that is what the actual definition is. And if we look at the diagram, you can see that it's showing that the two agents are negotiating. But remember this, there's going to be times when we have to negotiate with our own client. For example, to get the listing, you have to negotiate your services, why they should hire you, what the commission is going to be, who's going to pay for staging, who's going to pay for repairs. So you have a negotiation there. You may have to negotiate again during the transaction with your own client. Same with a buyer. When you're in a buyer consultation, they say, well, why should we work with you? You got to negotiate your value. If they ask you for money back, negotiate why you should not do that. Okay, so there's negotiation going on between the agents and between the agent and their own client. And this can happen more than once. It's going to happen during the transaction as well. Okay, so let's take a look at these questions. And the first one says, how can your ability to negotiate affect the outcome of a deal? Pretty much a given. I mean, the better you negotiate, the better the deal is going to be. And if you don't do a good job negotiating, well, then you may not get as good of a deal. Of course, our goal is always to try to come up with a win-win. And the reason why, well, of course, that's the KW philosophy, but also you have to remember we are in a small world. The real estate world is smaller than you think. If you are unfair or you are doing a win-lose situation, the word gets out there. And you may come up against somebody that heard about it, and they may not want to work with you. So always try to go for a good situation. Number two, what are some of the reasons, or what are some of the ways that you negotiate in everyday life? Well, think about it. There's quite a few ways. And with your significant other, you know, where are we going to dinner? I want to see this movie. No, let's buy this. No, let's go here on vacation. You got your kids. Kids are actually good negotiators. They keep on asking and asking, and we can learn a lot from them. You ever been to a flea market or a swap meet or a garage sale? The guy, he asks, hey, how much is this vase? I want $10. 10? Well, I'll give you 7. Well, no way, I'm not. 9. Okay, I'll give you 8. All right, let's do the deal. All right, so that happens a lot, more than we think. Number 3, what are skills that negotiators possess, great negotiators possess? Well, I can think of quite a few. I'll list a few, and then after the slide, if somebody else wants to chime in, then more than welcome. I think listening is a great skill for a good negotiator. You need to hear what the other side is saying. Being positive, being able to read people, pick up on the personality type, their buying style, and adapting to that personality type and selling them with their buying style. Of course, a good presentation, being believable, have a poker face. You don't want to show emotion, but be positive and able to walk away from the deal. All these are very important to have a good negotiation. And the last question is, why are asking questions important? Of course, we want to find out as much information as possible because the information we get is going to help us with our negotiation. One other thing I want to add before we go on is when I'm working with clients or anybody for that matter, I like to use the words we, our, and us as opposed to I, you, because I want to create the environment and the mindset that we're a team. We can get this deal done. Yeah, we can make it happen. Our offer looks good. I will see what we can get. This is what they gave us. So create that mindset of being on the same team. And believe me, it does help. So before we move on, is there any questions, input, anybody? Allison, if you can watch the chat. And this is a really interesting concept when you talk about personality types. Allison, did you have something?
No, there are just no questions yet in the chat.
Okay, good. Well, hopefully we are ready to move on. So let's move on. So we have common points of negotiation. And of course, price is always going to be one of those points. But there are other things that come up in negotiation as well. There's other terms. And of course, these terms can be negotiated. And those are, aside from price, you have closing costs or credits, close of escrow date, conveyances, basically what's included, not included, deposits, repairs, contingencies. All these things can come up when you're trying to negotiate a contract. And so the course wants us to talk about some of the issues that come up on these points. So what we'll do is we will go through these and we will talk about some of the things that come up. And of course, like I said, price is something that will always be a point of negotiation. There are two extremes, and I'll just touch on them real quick, where price doesn't really matter. One of them is back in 08, 09, we went through our short sale crisis. The seller wanted to sell because the bank was on them. They were having financial issues. They just wanted to get rid of the problem. They had no equity. If they sold, they would get no money no matter what. They didn't care what the price was. They just wanted to get out of that problem. Okay, at that point, price wasn't really an issue. It was more like, well, okay, who can get the deal done? The other extreme would be a couple years ago. 20, 30 offers on every property. The buyers are just saying, God, just get me a property. I don't care. Just if I can afford it, just get it for me. I don't care what the price is. So those are the two major extremes, and not 100% on either one of those, but that's when you would see the price is not that big of an issue. But normally, price will be a point of negotiation. Closing costs, credits, you're going to have a buyer, especially in Silicon Valley, and also new doctors. They may have just got out of school, they're making great money, but they don't have a lot of money put away. So let's say they have the down payment, but they're short on closing costs, and that's when you would ask the seller, hey, can you give us a credit towards our closing costs? And so sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. A lot of these things are going to depend on the market condition and what your competition is at the time you make the offer. Close of escrow date, that could become a point of negotiation, because sometimes the seller says, well, you know what, I can't close until this date because that's my 2 years and I want to make sure I don't have any problems with my exclusion. A buyer may say, well, my lease is up on this date and I need to move before that. And so there could be a conflict on that, and you just have to figure out, okay, well, let's see how we can make this work. So that does come up now and then. Conveyances, that's basically what is included, what's not included. Of course, you know, anything that's attached, anything that's a fixture that's considered real property, and normally it goes with the property. Anything that's freestanding, a refrigerator, freestanding stove, washer and dryer, anything that's not mounted, a fountain, that's considered personal property, and normally it goes with a buyer. But there are times, and you may have heard the term, everything's negotiable. The buyer may say, well, you know what, I want to buy this house, but I want them to include all the appliances, which is very common. They may even say, I want to include that picture, that painting on the wall. They can ask for anything they want. Of course, it's negotiable. And that's when personal property would go along with the sale of the house. But it does have to be in the contract. Even if things are listed in the MLS, on the flyer, online, if it's in the contract, it's included. If it's not in the contract, the seller could take it even though they gave you a verbal. The opposite is true as well, excluded. Now let's just say that there was a house, everything was really nice, the buyers loved it, but they had an old patio cover that's completely rotted out. And the buyer says, well, you know what? I love this house, but I'll only buy it if they remove that patio cover. Technically, it's attached to the house. It's part of the house, so it's considered real property. But they can ask to have it removed. Also, a rotten shed that is mounted to a foundation, but it's falling apart. And those are extremes, but it is something that can be asked for. Like I said, everything's negotiable. Deposits, normal right now. You know, if you can put a 3% deposit, you can. But there are times that, let's say somebody has a lot of money in this investment and they only have maybe 1% in the bank. You can say, okay, well, tell you what, we're only going to put in this much now, but as soon as we liquidate our investment, we'll increase the deposit. And that is on the first page of the contract, where you can put in a smaller amount and increase it at a later date. You can either put an actual date or you can put an event. For example, you can say when we release contingencies, we will increase our deposit. Or you can say after 5 days, when I liquidate my 401k or whatever the case may be, I will increase the deposit. Okay, and that's also something that will vary with market conditions. And of course, repairs, those can always be negotiated. Buyer will say, well, you know, I love the house, but they have to fix X, and they also have to fix Y. And the seller could say, well, no, you take it as is. And that can go back and forth. And a lot of times, those situations will end up in a credit. Instead of fixing the item, the seller will say, okay, look, we'll give you $2,500 and you fix it. And that's a very common solution to that. And of course, contingencies, those can also be a point of negotiation. You can have a buyer come in with very long contingencies, maybe the defaults on the contract, which are 21 days for loan, 17 for appraisal and inspection. And those are long in this market in San Jose area. So the seller would go back and say, no, we want you to have shorter contingencies, 10 days. And so then that's a point of negotiation. So there's a lot of things that can be negotiated. So any questions, any input? Anybody? Anybody have any experiences on these issues that they would want to share, or anything you're unclear on? If not, what we'll do is we'll continue, and we'll be talking more about these things as we go along. So as for now, let's move on. So the second section in this course talks about approach to negotiation. They call it the 3 Ps. The 3 Ps are prepare, present, and position. And so preparation is very important. Kind of goes along what we're talking about on what makes a great negotiator. Reading the people, getting as much information as you can, learning their personality, knowing what their big why is. Why are they doing this? Okay, so we will go into the section, and before we do, it just says here that negotiation is a skill that can be learned and perfected with experience. I don't know if anything can be perfect, but you will always get better the more you do it. And let's just say, well, I don't have any deals to negotiate. Not a problem. Get a partner. Do some role play. Talk to agents that have been through it. You can teach yourself until you actually get that real situation. That's why we have mentors. We have coaches. We have team leaders. We have agents always willing to help. So get some practice in. And the best practice for negotiating is bringing a buyer to seller together is using the 3P approach: prepare, present, and position. Again, prepare, very important. Presentation, also very important. So before we move on, any questions, any input? All right. So as we go through the 3 Ps, we'll talk about each one. But before we get into that, they have another slide here. Some negotiation tips. Kind of self-explanatory. Above all else, be professional. Be professional, but don't be stuffy. Okay, we're in a sales business. We want to be friendly, but be professional. Remember, number two, remember that the goal is a signed contract. That's what we're driving towards. Buyers and sellers, agents, they all have this in mind. But I want to add to that. I want to say our goal is a signed contract which best meets our client's needs and wants. All right? It's not just a signed contract. It's to meet our client's needs and wants. Number three, control what you say to anyone involved in the transaction, because if you create anxiety in a party, it could reduce the chances of a successful negotiation. And so what you don't want to be negative. You don't want to say anything that can bring somebody's motivation down, bring their confidence or their excitement down. Make sure you stay positive. But once again, only if you're getting your client into a good situation. Don't be excited to get them into just any contract. We have to meet their needs. We have a fiduciary responsibility to look after their best interest. Okay, number four, continually refer to motivation. And that's why it's very good to have a good pre-qual. You want to find out their why. Why are they doing this? What is their motivation? Why are they moving? Why are they buying? And you need to remind them as you go along, because there's times when clients will get off track. And because this is an emotional thing, especially with a first-time buyer. Sometimes they get scared. Sometimes they're nervous. They get buyer's remorse. So we have to go back to the motivation to remind them why we're doing this. I have one story about a client. He is really high up in one of the high-tech companies, super type A personality. He wants things done now. He wants the details quick, no wasting time. Just tell me, let's do it and get it done. That's his personality. I have a lender that I matched to that personality. Unfortunately, he was on vacation the day he found a house he wanted to buy. So it was on a weekend. We're at the office, and there's one lender in the office. He was a good lender, but just not that personality type. And so 3 times during the transaction, I would get either an email or a text message cussing and saying, forget it, I'm done. I don't want to deal with this guy anymore. I'm out here. Kill this deal. And so I'd call the loan agent and say, hey, what happened? He explained what happened. I said, well, that sounds normal. So I called the client, and so I explained it to him. He goes, well, why didn't he tell me that? Why didn't he say that? I said, well, I think he did, but maybe just in a different way. So I had to remind him, hey, look, all we got to do is do this, and you can get that house. It's a great deal in Willow Glen. You don't want to lose it. And so that happened 2 or 3 times. And so you go back to their motivation. You have to remind them. And the other thing I want to say about this too is when you get an emotional blow up like that, sometimes it's good to let it calm down before you make the call. And so what I'd like to do is I like to find out information. I'll get back to them. I'll send them a message, say, hey, I'm in the middle of something. I'll call you back as soon as I can. But first I find out what actually happened. I talk to the other party involved. Gives the mad person a chance to calm down. And then you can have a better discussion. Because if you call them right away, when they're really mad, upset, don't want to talk about it, they just say, no, cancel this deal, I'm done, I'm out of here. You don't want to do that. Sometimes you got to let them sit for a little bit. And you'll learn how to do that once you know what happens in the transaction, once you know what actually happened in that situation. Okay, so something to keep in mind. Listen more than talk. Yeah, you don't want to reveal too much. You want to keep your client's main motivation as close to your chest as possible. You don't want to tell the other side exactly what their big motivation is, because it can be used against you in a negotiation later on in the transaction. Okay, so and that's also a regular negotiation rule. You know, don't say too much. Listen more than you talk. And number 6, don't be attached to the outcome. And this is very important. And what it says here is you can't get everything you want and your clients all the time. Don't let it affect your mindset if the deal doesn't go through or if the client doesn't act on your recommendations. So my thought on that is, yes, don't be attached to the outcome. Remember, you're not the one buying this. You're representing them. And I always say, get the mindset of, hey, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But yet your goal is to make it happen. But you have to have that mindset where you can go in relaxed. You don't want to be emotional. You don't want to show desperation. You just want to go in and relax, do a good presentation. And here's another thing that I like to have in mind when I go into a negotiation. Have a plan B all set up. Sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not. I'll say, hey, look, this is a great deal. If we get it, it's great. But if we don't get this one is good too. We can get this one. So now you go in a little bit more relaxed, especially when it's a tough negotiation. You want to be relaxed and be ready to walk from a deal. You have to have this mindset to get a good negotiation in. I had a situation where it was a trust. There was two couples and a single brother, and we were at the table. It was a good offer, and the two couples were all for it. And I can tell the single brother is more the one that wants to be the control freak. And he said, well, no, what about this? What about this? And he kept on bringing things up. He said, I don't think we should take it. It wasn't on the market that long. And so I went through everything, all the reasons why it's a good situation for him. The two couples were happy. He was just going, no. I said, okay, tell you what. If you're not all happy, then I'm not happy. Let's cancel this. Let's get rid of this deal, and we will start all over again. And he just goes, oh, wait, I didn't say that. I don't want to do that. I said, okay, well then, what is it that is holding you back? And so he came up with a few things that weren't really relevant, but what I knew what I had to do is give him something. So I figured out what we can counter just to satisfy him. And once I said, okay, how about if we do this? This way you have everything you want. And he was happy with that. I could have just went forward with the other four's happiness and he would have been upset. But I know if I didn't give him something, he would have probably caused a problem later. Okay, so when I said, okay, then forget it, we're going to cancel it. A lot of times people will say, no, wait. I don't want to do that. So it's a good tactic to use. Before we go on, any questions, any input?
I think it is very important. Hi, Randy.
Hi.
I think it's very important to understand the expectations of our clients. If we understand what they want from us, what they expect to happen, we can help them reach their goals or help them understand that their expectations are too high or give them more ideas. But we need to ask a lot of questions. When we don't understand what they mean, we cannot assume things because somebody else, because of our experience, something happened. But everybody's different and everybody feels different about what's happening. So understanding exactly what they're looking for and what they want from us and how they would like things to happen, we will be able to give them a better service.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things is setting expectations. I think it's a little bit farther into the in the course. But yeah, that's why I always say a good prequal. Get to know your client, know what it is, and set the expectations. Big thing though is stay calm, stay confident. And the main thing is, get experience, get practice, whether it's role play or really doing it, maybe tag along with somebody, shadow them. But it's very important to get the experience or the practice. Okay, anything before we move on? Anybody else?
One of the things I wanted to say, this is Renee. Is
Hi, Renee.
Hi, how are you?
Very good.
Good. One of the things too, number 3, control what you say to anyone involved in the transaction. There's times I have experienced that it's easy to get upset with someone and then share it with the client or share your frustration with something that's going on with the client. And I mean, that is the quickest way to damage, or it can bite you in the tush at the end. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. You never badmouth anybody.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a golden rule.
It's easy sometimes to say, that other agent is being such a pill, and what you think you're helping your client, but what you're really doing is making them feel more insecure about the whole transaction.
I actually got a listing because of that. I was competing with another agent in my area, and when I was talking to the seller, and I knew I was competing with the other agent, And so they decided to go with us. And I asked, what was it that made you decide to go with us? And he says, well, you know what? I asked you about the other guy, and he had positive things to say. I asked him about you guys, and he was really negative, so I didn't like that. So, true story. All right, let's move on. So, still under preparation. Real quick, know your goal, know your client, think ahead, set clear expectations, like Viviana was saying. Be informed, obey the laws, of course, and know the documents inside and out, and I'll touch on that in a little bit. But know your goal. Once again, it's your client's goal. Know your client's goal. Your goal is to get your client's goal met as much as you can, okay? And very important, know your client. You need to know what it is that they want. You have to know why they're doing it, what their motivation is. You want to know what they're willing to do and not do, what they're willing to accept, what they're willing to pay. And that reminds me of another story. I had a client that we were working on getting this one property for the longest time, but the sellers were out of the country. And finally they came back, and so we made a good offer. They came back with a counter offer, and that went back and forth about maybe 4 times. And so we made our last offer, and he said, look, I am not paying a penny over $1 million. Tell him, take it or leave it. I am not paying a penny over $1 million. I said, okay, let me see what we can do. And so sure enough, the client came back with $1.02 million. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness. So I call him up and I say, hey, Justin, we got a counter. So I'm going to be sending it to you in a little bit. And he goes, well, what is it? I go, well, let me just send it to you and we'll talk about it when you get it. And then so I hung up, and then I called him back when I had it on the email ready to hit send. And so I started talking about the property, and everything that he told me about what he wanted to do with the property, I talked about that. And he started feeling really good. So I said, all we need to do now, and I hit click. I said, the counter offer is there at $1.02 million. All we got to do, sign that, and the place is yours. And he said, all right. So if they say that's their bottom line or they're not going over it, that's not always the case, okay? Think ahead. Anticipate the next move. If you say, well, we're going to offer this, and they probably will come back with this, and then we'll go back with that. You can't always get it exact, but always try to plan it out. Think of it as a game of chess. And here we go. Set, excuse me, clear expectations, okay? Let your clients know what to expect and what not to expect. Big thing is under promise, over deliver. Always have that as your mindset. Even if they ask for something and you know you can get it, don't say, okay, yeah, we can do that. Don't say, I can do that. Say, okay, well, let me work on it. Let me see if we can get it. Let me see if I can get that for us. And then you go and get it. Then you go back and everything is good because they got what they wanted. And the expectation was not up here, it was more down here. So it's a very good situation. And the other reason why you want to do that is because if you're going to ask, let's say you're working with a buyer, that listing agent could have changed something. The seller could have changed their mind on whatever that issue is. And then you tell them, oh yeah, we can get that. And then you go and you can't. Now it's a bad situation between you and your client. Okay, so under promise, over deliver. Be informed, very important. You want to be informed on everything, the whole situation. Find out what the clients want and why. And both clients, your client, and find out as much as you can about the other client. Sometimes you can find out a lot, sometimes you find out just a little, but get as much information as you can. Also, find out about the other agent. If you know them, great. If you don't know them, maybe you know somebody in their office. Find out a little bit about them. And if you have a good friend in there, say, hey, put in a good word for us. I mean, it happens all the time, believe me. Also, be informed by knowing if there's any new competition. For example, if you're working with a seller, you have your property priced at X, and then all of a sudden 1 or 2 more come up in the neighborhood and they're priced better. It's good to know that before you get into a negotiation. And the opposite is true as well. And then also be informed by, you can look people up, and this was brought up yesterday. Use Google, use Facebook. See if you can find out some things about the people, the agents, the clients. And it's not that you're stalking them. You're looking for common ground. You're looking for something that you can help build rapport with. Okay, so maybe they're also into coaching. Like myself, I coach baseball. I would look for things that we can relate to. If somebody's into wine, you know, and then you can use this information, just casually bring up the things that you have in common with people. And a lot of times it just makes the whole environment relax and people have a better outcome. Okay. Oh, and the last one. Well, we don't even need to talk about obey the laws. Of course, we're going to do that. But the last one, know the documents inside and out. I would say that's a great thing. But if you don't know them inside and out, don't let it hold you back. Even if you don't know the contract inside and out, you have help. You have mentors. You have team leaders. You have coaches. You have other agents that are willing to help. Don't let not knowing the documents inside and out, do not let that hold you back. Get help. You don't want to let a deal go because you're uncomfortable with the contract or whatever it may be. Get some help putting it together, and you're going to learn as you go. Believe me. Anything before we move on? Any input? Any questions?
When you say obey the laws, also know the laws. Different areas have different laws. I know that, like Santa Cruz County, we have sewer lateral that has to be done. So you have to know the laws in the different areas that you're working.
Yeah, very true, very true. And there are different counties that have different requirements, different point of sale items. So that's a very good point. So when you are working out of your area, make sure you find all this stuff out. And
I have a question regarding that.
Okay.
Is there like a place that you can go to find all that? That's like like somewhere that you can look up? I don't know.
Well, I've looked on county sites.
Okay.
And I've also asked agents that I know in the area.
Yeah.
And for example, the sewer lateral, what I found out was it's not required in certain situations, like a complex. Mm-hmm. Because it's supposed to be from the actual unit directly to the main sewer line, is from what I understand. And so there are certain exemptions that you don't need it. But what you want to do, though, is look at the county. They'll have documents you can read. They'll have all the regulations.
Okay.
But also ask somebody in the area, too, if you know somebody.
Yeah. Okay.
Alison, what I do is I call the Association of Realtors of the area.
Okay.
I ask them.
Ah, good idea.
Yeah. I talk to them about the keys, if it works, about the broker tours, about everything that will help my client, help me serve better my client.
Yeah.
Association of Realtors is the best source of information.
Okay.
Very good point. Very, very good. Okay, I think we're ready to move on. Okay, still under prepare. That's why I say preparation is very important. Asking questions is key to gaining information to win a negotiation. The more you know about a situation, your client, the other client, the better off you're going to be in your negotiation. Find out as much as you can about the other side. You may not, like I say, you may not be able to find out everything, but the more you know, the better of a chance to get a good negotiation. Reason why is because you can take that information, what their needs are, what their wants are, and you can incorporate that into your presentation. And it just makes it sound a whole lot better to the other side. And of course, there's two types of questions, open-end, closed-end. And I think everybody probably knows this, but your closed-end question is generally going to produce a yes or no answer. Your open-end questions are going to hopefully produce a good explanation. And you're going to learn a lot more. The what and how and why are the big ones. Because you can't say, how do you do this? No, it just doesn't work. So what, how, and why are the questions you want to really get used to asking. You want to get good explanations. You want to get a good response from the clients or even the other side. Okay? Anything before we move on? Still under prepare. Gosh, these are a couple follow-up questions. And this first one, what would happen if I like that question because you're going to be able to get the positive consequences as well as the negative consequences. And depending on your client and the situation, you're going to use this to get them on track. And for example, let's say that they're buying a house with a great backyard, swimming pool, nice outdoor kitchen, and they're backyard people. They're excited about that backyard. You say, hey, you know, what would happen if you got this place before summer? They're going to talk about the parties they're going to have. They're going to talk about the friends coming over, and they're going to be really happy. So that's a big positive that you can use to keep them motivated. And you can also say, well, what would happen if your home doesn't sell? And then you say, oh gosh, I won't be able to get that promotion and go to Southern California. I won't be able to do this or that. So that's also something you can use if they're starting to get off track and you need to get them motivated again or make them realize that, yes, I should do this, okay? Why is this important to you? It's good for digging deeper, getting more insight. When they give you the answer, say, oh, that's great. Why is that important to you? And they'll tell you a little bit more. So these are really good follow-up questions. Dig a little bit deeper, okay? So do we have any input on that? Any more questions before we go into the next section? Because the next section is an example they're going to give us, and we're going to brainstorm a little bit on it. If not, then we'll go ahead and move on. Anybody?
I think, Randy, one of the biggest issues is the price. And we need to set expectations that if the house is not selling, it is not because it is ugly, it is not because it doesn't have this or that, it's because of the price. The price is the biggest reason why. Whatever the problem is, if it is not remodeled, if it doesn't have everything that a buyer is expecting, is because they are asking too much for this condition of the house. We are not going to remodel the house to sell it, but we can change the price. So talk with them and say, okay, if in 2 weeks or if in 1 week we don't receive any interest in the house, we need to sit down again and talk about the price and lower the price. So they understand what is the process. And
that's very true. And that comes with your pre-qual, your listing appointment, going over the pricing. And sometimes you have to update it because the home's been sitting for a while, and now maybe one of the homes that were still available, now they went pending, and you find out how much it was sold for. You have to update your clients on that. And this way it makes it a little bit easier. Instead of just saying drop your price, you can say drop your price because of this. This just happened. Okay, so, but yeah, very important. Just educate your clients. Make them realize that this is what's going on in the market. Okay, so we ready to move on? So it says here, turn to page 9 in your participant guide, that I have it in here in the slide so you don't have to be looking back and forth. It's a scenario of a buyer that is getting ready to make an offer, and we need to try to get her to write a good offer. Okay, so I'll go ahead and read it. So you're representing a single buyer. Your client is renting her present property. Like any first-time buyer, she is looking to you to guide her through the process. The asking price of the home she really loves is, I changed it to $750,000. The house appears to have evidence of a roof leak. It's listed as is and is priced correctly. Your client wants to keep her payments as low as possible since she still has a number of student loans to pay off. She wants to write an offer for $730,000. There's been quite a bit of activity. So I would like to get some kind of input on this one. Who wants to say, what would you advise your client? What kind of questions would you ask her? Anybody is welcome to jump in. I will start, and if anybody wants to jump in, go ahead. The first thing I noticed is that she's renting right now. That's one thing. Another one is that she really loves this house. And the other thing I noticed is there's evidence of a roof leak. And that she wants to write an offer to keep her payments as low as possible. So those are the things that kind of jumped out at me. Anybody else see anything in that scenario that they want to bring up?
that we have to consider that she can pay 730,000. That's her limit, and we need to find a house for that price, or try to get the house for this price. If it is possible, talk with the listing agent. If there is room for negotiation on the price, and explain the situation to the listing agent. Sometimes for the seller, it's not all about the price. It is who is going to live in the house. So a nice letter explaining the situation of the buyer. Maybe the seller will say, yeah, I want to help this lady. I really like her. I think we have an opportunity to help her selling the house for 20,000 less. We never know.
Yeah, that's true. You never know. Sometimes they'll take less than what they're asking. But let's say there's multiple offers.
Well, the thing that I noticed is that it says she wants to write an offer. It doesn't really say she doesn't qualify for the 750. Right. So one of the things I would do is look, and she wants to keep her payments as low as possible, which, is we all do, don't we? I would actually figure out what the difference is in payment between the 750 and the 730, and ask her, are you willing to lose the house for $10 a month or $20 a month?
Very good point. Very good point. Tom, do you have something?
Well, the thing I drilled in on right off the bat was that the house appears to have an evidence of a roof leak, which in my opinion is huge, especially if she's thinking about coming in at 730. If it needs a new roof, that may be part of a negotiation in the sale of this house. And it's something that she ought to be aware of. And I agree with Renee. We need to make sure. I didn't see any evidence up front here of money. So I don't know what kind of money she really has. So I need to know more about that. And that might help a little bit in preparation. What is her financial situation? Can she actually take care of a roof leak on her own? So, or is 730 one where she's stretched to that point, and then buying a house with a house that's potentially going to be raining down on her? So that's my thought.
Anybody else? Maggie?
Yeah, I would say I'd be happy to make an offer for you at this price. If we're not able to make this particular house work, just because the price is higher and if there's multiple offers or whatever, you need to tell her about that. Would you want us to keep looking for something else? And that way she might come back and say, no, I'm willing to pay more. Like you get her motivation. Is it the price more important or the house more important?
Yeah, that's very good. One of the things that I said off the top was she's renting. As a renter becoming a homeowner, sometimes they don't realize they're going to be saving a huge amount on income tax. And so in this price range, she's going to have about a $30,000 write-off. And I'm not going to give her exact numbers. What I'm going to say is, I have another client that they bought in this price range. They saved about $10,000 in income tax a year because they wrote off all their interest and they're writing off their property taxes. So let's find out what your property taxes and your interest will be, and then we'll talk to your tax person and see how much you're going to save every year. Let's say it is $10,000. That's $833 a month you're going to be saving. Would that offset the difference in the payment between 750 and 730? I think so, but let's find out for sure. And another thing too that I noticed, it says evidence of a roof leak. Is it an old roof leak? Was it repaired? Is it a situation where, yeah, it's got a leak, but it can be fixed. You don't need a new roof. So these are some of the things I would look at. And if it is just an old roof leak, no problem. The roof might be good, but we would have to get an inspection. So I'd say, let's go forward. Let's get this. Let's tie it up. You love this house. Let's check things out. And if it doesn't work, then we'll move on to another one.
So
but
this one,
at least you can have first right of refusal on it if you get in contract. Go ahead.
So I was about to say, so the looks like the scenario is to find out what clarifying questions you would ask the client. So what other questions would you ask the client about her, from a, about her motivations? Or...
Yeah, first, what is it you really love about this house? And then if we looked at a bunch of other ones and this is the only one that has what she really loves, then that's going to kind of say, okay, well, maybe I should really concentrate on this house. Ask her about other resources. Does she have any contractors or carpentry people in the family that can help her? Different things like that. See if this is something, if the seller comes back without budging, is it still possible for her? So that's the kind of questions I think I would ask.
One of the things that I noticed here, and I just want to, I guess, give a reminder, it says an as-is sale. And I'll tell you what, nothing drives me nuts quicker than getting an offer that says this is an as-is sale, or getting a counter offer that says this is an as-is sale. Read the damn contract. It says it's an as-is sale. It gives the buyer the right to do any and all inspections, but it's an as-is sale. So
well, that's when you want to do inspections.
In California, all sales are as-is. Maggie, you're smiling. I just get so frustrated with that.
Well, I'm smiling because the intent of the listing agent is to say that we're not willing to sacrifice anything on the seller side, like we're not going to pay for repairs or we're not going to do a tenting or whatever. But the reality is if your seller wants to close the deal and you have some asks that they're willing to move forward with in order to get the price they want, they probably will do it. So,
well, and this was something
probably, it doesn't really make sense to say that, because you're basically saying that we refuse to negotiate with you, is what you're saying. Which doesn't make any sense.
You're right, because most of the time, I mean, you said this earlier, Randy. I mean, sometimes, you can never speak for your client. I've had a client say, I'm not going to do anything. I'm done, and then the buyer comes in with a request to do something. It's like, okay. And, a lot of times you talk to agents and they say, my client will never go for that. Ask them.
Exactly.
Ask them.
I mean, even banks will do roof repairs on an REO. It comes down to it. That's the only way they can sell the property. So.
Yeah, well, the car contract is default as is, but like Renee said, they have every right in the world to inspect anything they want, and they can still ask, even if it is, because there are things that, well, we bought it as we made an offer as is according to what we saw and what you provided. This is something new that came up because you didn't do an inspection. So there's always an argument. All right, before we move on, anything else? We have about only 10 minutes left, so let's kind of move a little bit quick here. So now that you got your buyer ready to make a good offer, and this was touched on a lot yesterday, so I'll just go really quick on this. You want to have a good offer so you can go in with confidence. You want to have everything in place, the loan in place. You want to have as solid of a picture as possible, because that way you go in with more confidence and you can negotiate with more strength. Okay, so this was talked about yesterday. I don't know if everybody was on the call yesterday, but I'd like to do a cover page with a summary, the pre-approval and proof of funds, the letter from the buyer with a photo, of course the RPA with the basic disclosures. That's all provided in WIN forms or ZIP forms. If the disclosures and reports are available ahead of time, go ahead and acknowledge those. If you want to really go in strong, do your AVIT up front. And if you are going in without certain contingencies, include that contingency removal. Okay, so make a nice clean package, communicate with the other agent, and then that way you can go in with a little bit more confidence. So now presenting the offer, of course, back in the days, some of us were around for a while, and we used to present offers in person directly to the seller with their agent right there. It's not very common anymore, but if you can do that, I would do it. So when you are in person, you want to look for the body language. You want to look for, how their reactions are. And this is after, of course, you find out as much information about them, because what you want to do is get all their needs and wants and include them into your presentation. For example, if they want a quick close and you're able to do a quick close, you include that when you're presenting your offer. You can talk about how quick you can close. If they want to sell it as is and you already looked at all the inspections, yeah, we're comfortable with that. You bring up that fact. So include all that into your presentation. And as you're presenting it to them, you look for clues such as what I said earlier, body language. But most of the time now it's going to be over the phone. Or maybe we might meet the agent in person, but not the seller. So look for these clues. Listen for the verbal clues. Like if you're on the phone, did their tonality change? Did their pace of their conversation, did that change? Did their energy level change? If it goes down, that means they didn't like what they heard. If it goes up and they get excited, they like what they heard. So listen for all these things, and listen after you ask questions. Of course, you want to ask questions. Listen to what the other side says and let them talk as much as possible, because you want as much information as possible, because if they come back with a counter offer, at least you know how to address that. Of course, it says stay calm and relaxed. That's what we want to do. Stay calm and relaxed. Have that poker face, I guess you can say. Focus on the customer's needs, both buyer and seller. You want to make sure that you are addressing the needs of the other side, because in order to get as much as you want, you have to give something to the other side. Okay? Now, give your offer the best chance. And once again, that's by having a good, clean, solid offer. I usually have my lender call the listing agent to just say, hey, I'm representing this client, I'm doing their financing, this is where we're at, it's already gone through underwriting, and whatever the strengths are. And that always is a good thing, because me as a listing agent, I'm going to make that phone call. But if it's already done, then hey, that's a good thing. I like it. Anything else anybody want to add to this page? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. On the listing side, when you get an offer, very important, call the lender if they're doing financing. Find out how far along the loan is. Is it actually a pre-approval, or is this just a pre-qual? Oh, check on the proof of funds. Make sure the statements are fairly current. I had a bank statement come in one time. It was 8 months old. You don't know what can happen in 8 months. So make sure they're current. Some are quarterly. They may not be that current month because they come out quarterly. Most bank statements will be monthly, though. Ask the agent about their buyer. Get a little bit of background on them. Find out why they're buying it, what they liked about the house, why they're moving. Get as much as you can. And check out the buyer and the agent. We talked about that already. And I'm kind of going fast now because we're coming up on 10 o'clock.
Randy, I wanted to ask a quick question, though. If the proof of funds is in a stock market or a mutual fund or how do you address that? Because, that's a very volatile.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. I usually say, well, if we're going to go with this, I want you to liquidate those funds as soon as possible, because I don't want them to be waiting until the close of escrow to go up, and then all of a sudden they don't have a down payment. So that's one of the things. If I have multiple offers, it's easy to say, hey, I want to see this liquidated within 5 days, and that is a contingency that I put it in the contract. And if they don't do it, I have the right to move on to somebody else. You can't always do that, because if we're in a buyer's market, you don't have as much leverage. But that is a very good point to bring up in a volatile stock market. Something you have to consider.
I have a deal right now that's going to be closing late, because the 401k, they couldn't liquidate it fast enough. They're having problems liquidating.
Yeah, it hasn't happened to me, but I've seen it happen. And when I seen it happen, I try to learn from other people's mistakes. And so everybody should keep an eye on that. If they're giving you a statement that is in stock, right now it's very volatile. Thanks for bringing that up, Renee.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're not going to have time to cover everything. I guess I'm a little bit long-winded. I don't know what happened. But there is something that I would like to talk about. There's another scenario, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip down to they call them tactics. I like to call them techniques for negotiation. They're talking about, now, on this slide here, where it says nibbling, the paragraph next to it does not go with that. It's supposed to be a project where you align the word with the explanation. But nibbling is something where a buyer will come in and they say, okay, we're good, we're in contract. Oh, well, you know what? Can you give us a credit for this? And then a little while later, they come back and say, oh, can you include the refrigerator? A little while later, they come back, can you do this? So that's called nibbling. Instead of asking for everything at once, they break it up and they keep on nitpicking. And so one of the things you can do in that situation is say, okay, wait a minute. Before we even consider that, or if we consider that, we'll do it, but you're going to have to give us this. Or if you're going to take the refrigerator, okay, then we're taking the hot tub that was included. You know, counter back at them. Hot potato, that's where they try to put the everything on your client. There's the buyer's agent might say, hey, you know what? We're going to buy this place. The only thing is we can't afford your price. So talk to the seller, see if they'll come down to this price, and then we'll buy it. And that's when you want to say, well, wait a minute. Have you exhausted all your options? Have you looked at a 10-year fix? Have you looked at a different type of loan program? Go through it. Don't just say, okay, we'll do it. Make them do some work. And also, and that's one of the reasons why I like to call the loan agent, or at least talk to the loan agent ahead of time, because I find out if there's any wiggle room along with finding out where the loan process is. Do they have extra money? You know, are they able to stretch a little bit? So when I know all this, then I can go back and counter that tactic. And of course, the good guy, bad guy, you've seen in the car lots where says, I'd love to sell the car at this price, but my manager won't let me do it. And if you can tell that's what's going on, he says, you know, I'm okay with this offer, but my partner won't let me do it. Just say, wait a minute, I know what you guys are doing. Get your partner on the phone right now. All right, you got to be strong. All right, when you see these tactics, don't let them take advantage of you. All right, where else can we squeeze in? It is 10 o'clock. Actually, it's 10:01. We do have one last scenario to go through if everybody wants to hang in there. If not, we can just wrap it up right now. Any input?
You can keep going.
Yeah,
Okay.
keep going, Randy.
All right, good. We'll do one more. And this is where somebody, I won't go with the actual example here because I have another life situation that is almost the same as this example. It was a seller that he was ready to sell. He was getting married. He's been single for a long time. He had a condo. The wife had her house. They were going to move into her house after they got married. And so we sold the condo. We got a good offer, but then he was having seller's remorse. He was saying, gosh, Randy, I built this equity. I built all these memories here. I don't know if I should sell it after all. And he was wanting to back out. And so knowing that a lot about this client that I knew, I started talking to him about him and his soon-to-be wife. And I said, you know, Fred, yeah, you built equity here. You have memories here. But that's like, let me backtrack a little bit. I met him in church a long time ago. He's a very spiritual guy. And so I said, Fred, what you're talking about, the equity and the memories you built here, that is not these walls. That is what you built here. It's like the spirit of the house. Your equity and all these memories, that's like the spirit of this house. Just like you. Your body, that's nothing. It's your spirit. When your body's gone, your spirit's going to live on. So what you're going to do here, you're not getting rid of your memories or your equity. You're just transferring it from this body to Dolores's body. You're going to join with her equity and her memories. The two of you are going to become one, and now your equity is going to become one. And he thought about it, and he goes, you know what, you're right. And he went forward. So I say that story and the reason is because it is so important to really get to know your client, what their hot buttons are, what is important to them. And we can end with that. And any input before we wrap things up? We're going to go into just recapping any ahas, anything that came up, any questions. We went a little bit over time. I apologize about that, but the floor is open.
It was really helpful. Thank you. I think just the more you do it, the more confident you'll get for us newer agents. So
Well, yeah, but you can, like I said, role play, get partners, talk to other agents that are doing it, and it does help.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else out there? Everybody hang up on me already? Hey, Laura, I see you there.
No, you still have 28 people. You have a full room.
Well, somebody speak up.
Well, great job. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Very good
You
job.
did a great job, Randy.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you very
did.
much.
Thank you.
All right, gang. Well, as you know, as you've seen many times before, as we move on, are we still talking to people? Are we adding contacts? Are we writing notes, having conversations, previewing vacant homes, that is? So get out there, do it. And most important, learn your scripts and dialogue. Memorize, internalize, and personalize. Very important. Get a partner. Do some role play. It becomes fun, believe me. Well, Laura, you think we're done?
Yeah, thank you so much. And just a reminder, you guys, we have 2 more classes left. Look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow. So thank you.
I'll see you guys in 2 days.
Yeah, Randy's teaching the last one. So thanks, Randy.
All right. See you, everybody.
Okay, you guys have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Andy.
Thank you.